webcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good day, this is Bill Groot from Hewlett-Packard. Welcome to our second day of the ALM QC Expert Week. This is our last session for today, and the title of the session is HP Synchronizer, today's highlights and tomorrow's future direction. The presenter is Vandam Nayak. He's the product manager for ALM within HP. But before we get started, I just wanted to inform you that if you haven't heard it before, you could submit questions in the questions box on there, and Vandam will address your questions in a Q&A session. And this session is being recorded. An hour and a half after the session, we will post this in the customer forum that you should all be acquainted with. And you could submit your questions there. If you can't submit them now, and maybe you'll review the recording again, you might have thoughts. Then you can also submit your questions there. Also, feedback on the session today or feedback on the Expert Week is also appreciated. So we'll see you there, and I'll hand it over to Vandam for his presentation today.
Great. Thank you, Bill. So my name again is Vandam Nayak, and I'm the product manager for the ALM team. I manage the ALM platform, for which Synchronizer is one of the key components that we have in there. So for every instance of HP ALM or HP Quality Center Enterprise that we sell, synchronizing is a capability that we provide out of the box and is free. So it's not a separate product that is sold, but it is value that we provide in the product itself. If you haven't had a chance to look at Synchronizer, some of the new things that we have been doing, I'll cover some of it today, and then also give kind of an overview of the items that we are looking at in the future. So let's go ahead and jump right into the deck here. So from a value standpoint, what is it? What is a synchronizer, and why do I need it? And so many times we find that customers are not aware of the fact that they have a synchronizer available for them for free, and the fact that you can set it up in order to go about getting all the entities synchronized. So the question is, when do you need a synchronizer, and why would you put it up in the first place? Now, one of the key things that has happened in the marketplace over the past few years is that there's been kind of a proliferation of multiple tools used for tracking entities, and especially with defect tracking, we've seen a lot of Jira being used. You also have developers who tend to have a bias towards one tool versus another in there. And as ALM and as Quality Center, being, I would say, the tool of choice primarily from a testing perspective, it's important that we have the ability to integrate specifically around defects and also around some of the requirements that we like to manage as part of the life cycle into many of these tools in there. So from a synchronizing perspective, the core value proposition that HP Synchronizer has to offer is the ability for us to synchronize both requirements and defects in there. One of the key things to be aware of is ALM or Quality Center has to be one of the endpoints. So that's the way the synchronizer is configured in there. So if you set up the synchronizer and configure one of the endpoints, that will be an ALM and Quality Center endpoint, versus the other endpoint could be something like a different ALM tool, could be a TFS, could be Jira, based on the adapters that we have. I mentioned the fact again that it is free, because many times we realize that people are not aware of the capability that it is available in the products. And there's been a lot of work that we have put in enhancing some of the out-of-the-box capabilities that we provide in Synchronizer, and also just adding collateral in terms of making it easy both in documentation as well as, I would say, best practices in there. We also provide an SDK. And this Sync SDK is something that we allow both customers as well as partners to go build additional adapters on top of it. So we have a specific email address listed on HPLive Network where you can kind of put in your request asking for the SDK. And the primary purpose of the SDK in there is to allow you to have, if you have custom tools, say you have custom defect tracking tools, which many a times we see in the enterprise, and you really don't want to go and purchase a third-party synchronizer, you can go ahead and use this SDK and build this SDK out there. So use for internal use only. If you're an HP partner and you want to go about reselling some of the custom adapters that you build based on the Synchronizer SDK, there's a different agreement that you can sign up and you can go build that out as well. The one thing that I'd like to share where we have, I would say, an overall collection of all the information that you need around Synchronizer is the HPLive Network. So if you aren't familiar with HPLive Network, I think it's a portal that we use all across HP software in order to drive content. And it's also a direction where we would like to soon get into some kind of a marketplace in the future where we can showcase the adapters that are being built either by customers or even by partners to you. So let me probably do an overview of HPLive Network towards the end, so we'll give you a coverage in there. So how does the synchronizer work? And I just wanted to put out a very simple architecture of what the synchronizer does. One of the endpoints, like I mentioned, is HPALM. You have the synchronizer client. This is the client where you would access the configuration and the mappings that you would need to do between the two ALM systems. So if you have defects and there are attributes that are defined within ALM and they need to be mapped to the second endpoint in there, this mapping is done through the client. This is the client where you would go about also evaluating if there are any conflicts and looking for any issues and logs as we do this. So the synchronizer by itself is a separate installation, and typically we ask it to be more of a dedicated server so that you don't really, it doesn't interfere with the ALM platform in general. And the synchronizing client, again, is something that you can access either on the server itself or through a remote machine as you go about making this mapping between the two tools. So what's new and what is it that we have done in Synchronizer? So we've added a lot of capabilities in Synchronizer over the past, I would say, few months, specifically in terms of getting the latest release for ALM 12.2 supported, and also some of the key adapters that we have. The latest version of Synchronizer is 1.6. Again, things that you can see on there are products that we support out of the box today, which is 11.5.2 and later. With TFS, we've had support for a long time, and with 2013, which we added sometime mid last year, that's the last version of TFS that we support. The legacy stack in terms of the adapters has been primarily ClearQuest and RecPro. So the versions of these, some of these have been outdated, but these are still versions that we see our customers using, and these are capabilities that we provide. In 2015, specifically, we added two, I would say, big adapters, and primarily driven by the demand that we heard from the enterprise. And this is where I think in March, we came out with the Atlassian Jira adapter, which is primarily for 6.2 and 6.3, and also for the IBM Rational Team Concert, the 5 edition in there. So this is out there on HPLive Network, and I'll kind of walk through those portals just to let you know that from a Jira standpoint, there's been, I would say, a huge, reception for the adapter itself, because as soon as we put it out there, there's been people downloading that and configuring it in there. Many times there have been other solutions put out from a partner perspective, and customers are evaluating our solution versus the partner solution in there. From a presentation standpoint, I don't have much to present in here. I want to kind of give a quick overview of what we have from Synchronizer and what are, I would say, the future direction as to where we would want to invest in there. After that, what I'd like to do is just cover HPLive Network and open it to Q&A, because I think that will be of most value for you and for me to look at Synchronizer and learn some of the things that you're using a Synchronizer for. So what's next for HP Synchronizer? One of the areas that we see our strategy evolving to is how do we go about now getting more data from the testing aspect where testing is done in a different tool outside of ALM and Quality Center. One of the projects that we have ongoing right now is to look at Jenkins as the primary CI tool. And as you have test execution that happens within Jenkins through plugins that Jenkins provides, we want to go about providing a mechanism of moving those test results from Jenkins into ALM. And the idea is, why would you want to do that? As we try to get into more of a continuous integration or a continuous deployment kind of a mode, it's very important for us to have a comprehensive view of quality. That means that quality is not only the testing that happens post the build, but it's also the test that happens as part of the build process. And this could start from unit tests, could have testing tools like Selenium and other testing tools that you would want to get executed, which developers are running right now. And you want to have visibility to that as part of the quality status of that build. So synchronizing the test results from Jenkins and showcasing them within ALM is one of the projects that we have ongoing right now. And we hope that we will start a beta around that in the second half of the year. So the idea there is to, again, provide a comprehensive review end to end, right from when the build is ready from the developer side, right to at every stage of how that build gets promoted to production, we can give you a quality picture. To continuously adapt, I would say, or update the adapters that we have. So there are a lot of changes that are happening around the ecosystem with ALM tools. From our standpoint, there's a huge focus towards SaaS. So on ALM SaaS, we want to continue to support Synchronizer. With TFS also shifting primarily to a cloud-first strategy, there's some requests that we have seen around moving it to Visual Studio Online. Same thing with updated versions of just RTC and Jira. I think there's Jira Cloud, there's Jira 6.4 that I've seen requests for. So as we get those requests, then we'll prioritize them and look at updating our adapters to meet those needs. The other big item that we have in synchronizing is to make it a part of the core ALM platform. And what does this mean? So today with Agile Manager, so HP Agile Manager is HP's Agile offering. If you aren't familiar with it, we have a very strong integration that is out of the box built in for Agile Manager to HP ALM. And the primary purpose of building this synchronizing is because as project teams use Agile methodology in terms of development, we still would like to get a complete overview of the life cycle. And this is where the need to synchronize those user stories and those features and epics into ALM, which then synchronizes them into PPM. We can have an overview both from a defect standpoint and also from a requirement standpoint. Now with Agile Manager, we start off with Synchronizer being a separate installation and separate configuration. As we went about consolidating the infrastructure, what we've done in the latest release for Agile Manager is we've actually put the Synchronizer as a service within Agile Manager. So we call it the Next Gen Sync. And that's a capability that's available to Agile Manager customers today. Now, from the same learnings that you had in Agile Manager, what we'd like to do is to go about incorporating a similar kind of capability for our QC ALM customers as well. So as we go about modernizing our ALM platform, and we do many of the things around the web client, which is a part of our strategy as well, we want to take the opportunity and also move the synchronizer and potentially have it as a service. The benefits of that are clearly you no longer need to have a separate piece of infrastructure that is currently required, which is an ALM server on separate stack and the synchronizer server on a separate stack, but you would be able to use a single platform. From our standpoint, it pretty much also makes the infrastructure requirement as a one single requirement, so you don't really have to get different kind of infrastructure, as well as the testing that we need to do is all built into the platform per se. From a feature standpoint, I think as the world moves towards a more real-time delivery, we want sync to also move to as close as real-time. Today, I know that we have times where we see about 10 to 15 minutes times. Many customers set smaller times as well as larger times in terms of syncing both the entities of requirements and defects, but we'd like to get as close as real-time to possible in there. Looking at making it easier for the administrators to manage the errors, because whenever you have synchronizing, there are going to be potential conflicts that happen. And how do you go about resolving those conflicts and making it easier from an administrator standpoint is another aspect that we are focused on. Having a kind of an overview, a dashboard. So looking at I would say one-stop shop in terms of giving you all the information around the success that happens for Synchronizer, around the errors that happen and how do you go about fixing them in a meaningful dashboard. So it's one area where you can get all this information is another aspect in terms of enhancing the Synchronizer client. Today, as we go about synchronizing requirements and defects, we have a challenge because we do not support history, so we are unable to carry over history from the past, and this is another thing to carry over, where we would like to go about moving historical data off the Synchronizer as those entities moves. Same thing to do with linkages, because traceability is a core value that we have for the ALM platform as you look at building the entire life cycle within ALM or Quality Center. So the carrying over of the linkages and the attachments is an important aspect of sharing value within ALM. So giving that as part of a future enhancement request is another aspect that we are looking at. So from my standpoint, I think if there are specific enhancements that you'd like to see from a Synchronizer perspective, this would be a great opportunity to either talk to it, or you can also go about creating an enhancement request via the support portal. And these are enhancement requests that we review quite regularly. And what we'd like to do is we'd like to go about getting that feedback as we build out our future roadmap. So many of the things that you saw me talk about have come in as customer requests, both at an individual level as well as groups of customers who asked for specific enhancements. We've gone ahead and prioritized those and driven them in there. So do take the opportunity to go about you leveraging this session as well as the regular enhancement request portals where you can submit requests for Synchronizer in there. So to kind of wrap things up around Synchronizer, what I'd like to do is quickly showcase also HPLive Network. So want to make sure in terms of the single portal that I talked to about earlier as to where do I find all things related to Synchronizer, and where do I go about downloading bits of Synchronizer if I'm not familiar with it. HPLive Network is the one single location that you would see us post content to. So as we go about updating stuff, this is the location where you can have it. If you're interested in what are the technical specifications, we keep updating the technical specifications here. So that's what you would see here. There's a what's new as to what are the new areas that we have updated in here. We've kind of split the adapters, mainly because many of the adapters, like I mentioned, are for versions that have been end-of-life. Because those are still in use, we have kept them as the previous versions. So if you go to the previous versions, you would see those adapters in here. So give it just a second for it to load here, and then we should see those. So again, the list of those adapters, primarily ClearQuest, RecPro, and some of the TFS versions in the past that we've had. If you're looking at from some of the newer stuff that I just talked about, mainly about RTC and Jira, along with the TFS one, also these are listed in here. So you can see us trying to keep it updated and removing as much clutter from, I would say, a content delivery perspective in here. And the other thing that I want to talk about in here is to make sure that you have access to the SDK. So if you're looking at the adapter software development kit, And this is an area where if you choose to go about building your own adapter, which is based on the HP synchronizer, this is the location as to where you would find information on it. We do require you to go sign a legal agreement in order to get access to the SDK. And the primary two use cases that we see is customers building their own SDK for internal use. They typically come to me through this email address, or if you're a partner who would like to build it and resell it, there's a separate agreement that you would need to go build a sign up from a legal perspective in there. And that's where I would send you the SDK, and then you're off on your merry way building that specific custom adapter in there. So I know that from a content perspective, what's new, what's the value for Synchronizer, I wanted to keep it at a very high level. What I'd like to do is to hear more from you as to where do you see Synchronizer if you use it today, any questions, any feedback, any enhancement requests that you had from me. I'd love to get that feedback now. So if there's a way for us to unmute folk so that we can have a conversation, that'll be great.
So, Vedant, what we're doing is having customers submit their questions. Their lines are muted. Okay. So I've assigned a number of questions to you that have come in. So if you look at the question area, you should see the questions coming in right now.
Okay.
Do you see that on the right-hand side? You see questions?
Yes, I do. Let me just go maximize those here.
That's pretty small.
Yeah. Okay. So the first question that I have is, do we need a standalone server to set up the ALM synchronizer? And today the answer is yes. We do need a standalone server. And primarily we do it in terms of separating, I would say, the ALM server performance from synchronizing. So if there are synchronizing, you want to keep it separate in there. And I talked about the technical specifications spec. So I hope everyone can see it here, but the technical specifications spec gives out the detailed technical specifications of what you would want in that server.
So for them, what we perhaps can do, when I post something out there, perhaps you can put some information regarding Live Network in that post, right? Perhaps with some links, and then people can go from that post into Live Network.
Absolutely. So when we do something that, we can do that. Yes.
Thank you.
So I'll move on to the next question. What's the process to connect ALM synchronizer to third-party tools in there? And I think the adapters that I mentioned, again, I'll point to HPLive Network. We have those adapters. Once you install the synchronizing server, you want to install the specific adapter. In this case, if it's the TFS 2013 or a Jira 6.3, you would install that adapter. And then the documentation in there clearly gives you how you would want to build the mapping between, say, a defect entities from ALM or Quality Center into a Jira or a TFS in there. Does the synchronizer has a complete ability to implement integration with this, or do we still need third-party vendor for their solution? So this is a good question in there. From the use case perspective as to what the synchronizer helps support, we are looking at it from a very simple use case perspective, which is you have the ability to do entity mapping between Jira and between QC, and you can go about supporting that using Synchronizer. But many a times what we see is as you have multiple ALM tools that come into the picture, there is a need for, I would say, sophisticated use cases that need to be built. So there are needs for transformations which are much more complex than what we provide as a part of our synchronizing solutions. And this is where we refer our customers to partner solutions. So when we look at partners like TaskTop, or if you look at GoToGroup, or if you look at OpsUp, these are many of the partners who are HP partners who have built stand-up and ground-up solutions for synchronizing. So they don't really use QC Synchronizer. They have their own synchronizing solution that are more niche and targeted for, I would say, other detailed and sophisticated use cases in there. So if the use case that you have is quite simple in terms of transformation and mapping, then HP Synchronizer will mostly meet your needs. As your use cases and the scenarios that you want get more detailed, you want to look at whether it's a Synchronizer or it's a sync partner solution that you have. So I think this is a question regarding the dashboard, or so the the enhancement request that I talked about, or which is a part of our roadmap, is primarily, I'd say, something that we would give the synchronizer itself. So we would not include it as a part of ALM QC for the users, because we see this mainly as more of an administrative task where that persona would get access to it. And it could, in the start, we would look at it separately, but I think from a client perspective, at some point, the unification of how the client is built, you would get the same look and feel experience in there. What permissions are required to install this on Jira, and is there a document for the setup process? I think I talked to this. We definitely have all the detailed documentation here on HPLive Network as to how to go about doing the Jira adapter in there. Did I skip one? No. Oh, we tried to implement synchronizer in Jira and HPLM. There's no support for comments and affected versions. When are you planning to add these? So I think that, again, a very good question. We, like I said, there's been a lot of enhancement requests that have been pouring in for Jira, and some of the big ones that have been coming in are primarily to support the later versions like 6.4 and also for Jira Cloud. I've seen some requests around comments and affected versions in there. For us, right now, because Jira came out at, say, the Jira adapter from us came out mid to end March, we're still in the phase of getting a lot of feedback and consolidating that. You'd see us also talk at HP Discover around it, and as we go about building a roadmap in where we prioritize it, we'll take this into account. So I don't have a timeline to share around when we'll have this, but this is definitely feedback that we have heard from our customers. Another question that we have here is, in order to check synchronizing logs from ALM, we have to get a get history button corresponding to the last full synchronizing. However, in 1.6, instead of getting full sync logs, we are getting incremental sync logs. Is there a way to fix this issue for 1201? I need to go check. I think we did this mainly because there was an ask in terms of limiting the amount of logging that we do. Whenever we make such changes, typically we have an option that we would allow you to set those logs back to full sync in there. I don't remember that top of my head, but I'm pretty sure there must be one. So this is something that I'll have to take an action on and kind of get back to you. I think this is a question from Fernanda. Can we use the latest version of Synchronizer with 12.01, or is it compatible with 12.2? So the latest version of Synchronizer, which is 1.6, is definitely compatible with 12.2. So you can definitely go ahead and use that with ALM 12.2 as well. And I think I got the same question, same as what Fernanda asked for in regard to the need for show full sync logs versus just incremental logs, and whether this will be fixed. I need to go check back. My understanding is that we should have a way to turn this on. I just need to validate this with my development team. So this is one action that I can take in here.
Okay. Was that all your? I'm not seeing any other questions, Vadam. So.
No, so I don't see any other questions in there. So apart from the one question, hopefully I did answer the other questions.
Yeah, excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent. And go ahead.
So I know that the session is quite short in there because from my standpoint, HPLive Network is the way we built it more from a community perspective, that you have all the collateral that you need. Let me walk through some of it in the interest, because most of the questions that I see here, we have answers on HPLive Network itself. So again, just getting back to the portal itself of what we have, looking at the downloads. So there were questions as to where do I get the downloads of what you have. So we have all the previous versions, and you can look at the number of downloads. It's been quite heavily, I would say, used in what's new. It's something that we put out quite regularly as well. Some of the new adapters, again, the segregation that we are doing for both Jira. So anything that's related to Jira, both the README as well as the documentation for the adapter is out here. Same thing for RDC is out here. So feel free to download that. From a 12.2 perspective, both from an installation, user guide, a client download that you need to in there, as well as the server, all specifications are out here. Just from an announcement perspective, as we put out new stuff, we typically put it out here. And the last announcements are primarily around the 12.01 in there. So I think we need to go update the announcements in here. So something that we should have been shown here. Any other questions that I can take on here, or from my perspective?
There are no new questions that have come in.
Okay.
So I thank you very much for your time, Adam. It's an excellent presentation, given the demo also on Live Network. So what will happen now is that we will create a post in the Quality Center Support Customer Forum with the link to this recording, and within that post you also can submit your questions to Vadam regarding his session. You also can go into that forum and submit any other questions you might have for Quality Center, as we have engineers in that forum that can hopefully address any questions you might have in ALM or QC, or provide any feedback on the session for Vadam, or feedback regarding the expert week so far. So hopefully, I want to thank Vadam for his time today. I want to thank everyone on the phone for coming in and listening to this presentation. And hopefully, we'll see you in the forum soon, where you could submit your questions. We'll start again tomorrow, where we have 3 other sessions, and we have a full day on Thursday. So thanks again for everyone's time today, and hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks.
Hey, thank you guys. This is hopefully this has been very helpful to all, and feel free to post as many comments so we can help share the stuff that we are having around Synchronizer. Thank you guys.
Thanks, Vadam.